Hello and welcome to Unacademy. Indian Polity by M. Lakshmikant. This is a book which everybody recommends for Indian polity. But what if I tell you that this book, although relevant for the prelims examination, is not relevant at all for the mains examination? Surprised or shocked? Stay with me till the end, for I will share a comprehensive preparation plan for Indian polity, both for prelims as well as the mains examination. And if this session is going to help your preparation in any way, then please press the like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. And if you have any doubts with regards to your preparation, whether related to Indian polity or generally, please let me know in the comment section and I will personally respond to all your doubts. Let's get started. And first up, we say that Indian polity is one of the most important subjects for the civil services examination. And how do we judge this term importance? By looking at the sheer weightage of this subject for prelims as well as the mains examination. How? If we look at the prelims examination and right from 2013, when the pattern of this examination changed, consistently 15 to 16 questions have been asked from Indian polity in your prelims examination. Sometimes the number has gone up to 22 as well, but on an average 15 to 16 questions are asked from Indian polity in your prelims examination. And this year in 2025, 14 questions were asked from Indian polity in the civil services prelims examination, which tells you the importance and significance of this subject. But not only for prelims, let's look at the mains examination. If you look at the syllabus of this examination, GS paper 2, which talks about polity, which talks about governance, which talks about social justice, which talks about international relations. If we only look at Indian polity and governance, sometimes 150, sometimes 160, sometimes 165 worth of questions have been asked in your GS paper 2 out of 250, which tells you the importance and the significance of this subject. And listen to me carefully. This subject is relevant not only for your prelims examination, as we have discussed, not only for the mains examination when it comes to GS paper 2, but your knowledge of Indian polity is going to play a very important role in your GS paper 1 as well, which talks about the society of India. This subject is relevant also for GS 4, ethics, integrity and aptitude. This subject is relevant also for your essays. So your knowledge of constitution, your knowledge of the laws, your knowledge of the rights, your knowledge of the important Supreme Court judgments can play an important role in helping you write a cogent, better essays in your mains examination. Plus on top of that, if your optional subject is, let's say, political science and international relations, public administration, sociology as well, to some extent geography as well, this subject is going to play an important role, is going to help you in your optional subject as well. So this is the answer to the first question that I raised. What is the importance and significance of Indian polity for the civil services examination? And I told you this is one of the most important subjects. That does not mean this is the only important subject, but this is one of the most important subjects in your civil services examination because it is relevant for prelims, mains, GS paper 2, GS paper 4, GS paper 1 as well, essays as well, and will help you in some of the optional subjects as well. That is the significance of Indian polity for the civil services examination. But sir, if this is one of the most important subjects for the civil services examination, but exactly what do we need to study in Indian polity? There are 4 key areas that you have to focus upon. First is the constitution. So you will have to discuss fundamental rights, directive principles of the state policy, fundamental duties, office of the president, vice president, prime minister, council of ministers, attorney general, governor, we have to discuss judiciary, elections, Panchayati Raj institutions, constitutional bodies such as UPSC, Election Commission of India, so on and so forth. The first key area is we have to focus on the Constitution of India. Second, we have to focus on the laws passed by the legislature, and more importantly, the laws passed by the Indian Parliament, the central legislature. This is where we have to discuss statutory bodies as well, such as Lokpal, which is a statutory body, a body which is created by the Act of Indian Parliament. And this question was asked in 2025 prelims as well. We have to discuss laws such as Aadhaar. We have to discuss laws such as the Citizenship Act. We have to discuss laws such as the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. We have to discuss laws such as Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So if the first focus of Indian polity is on the Constitution, the second key area is the law passed by the legislature, and then the statutory bodies as well, such as Lokpal, such as National Human Rights Commission, so on and so forth. And the third important area, key focus area for Indian polity is judicial verdicts. For example, critically analyze the NJAC verdict of the Honorable Supreme Court. This question was asked in the mains examination. So your knowledge of various important Supreme Court judgments will play a very important role, particularly in your mains examination, because sometimes questions are asked. Write an answer to this question by citing relevant case laws. So case laws related to, let's say, Keshavananda Bharti. Question on IR Kolo case was asked. How far do you think that the recent Supreme Court judgment related to Delhi Lieutenant Governor versus the Delhi government is going to resolve the dispute? That question was asked in your mains examination. The first key area of focus for Indian polity is on the Constitution, second on the laws passed by the legislature, third on various judicial verdicts, and then the fourth, developments related to the syllabus. For example, a question on ethics committee was asked in your prelims examination. Ethics committee is not mentioned in the Constitution. It is mentioned in the rules of business and procedure. Similarly, what is the difference between judicial custody and police custody? This question was asked in your prelims examination. So, four key areas of focus for Indian polity. First, the Constitution, then the laws passed by the legislature, then important judicial verdicts, then also developments related to the syllabus. But sir, I have a question. What is the question? So does that mean we have to focus on all the laws which have been passed by the Indian Parliament since the time we became a constitutional republic? Does that mean we have to focus on all the verdicts of the Supreme Court, which were delivered by the Supreme Court right from 1950 onwards? Do we have to look at all the developments which have taken place related to the syllabus? No. Then, sir, what is the key focus? This is where current affairs plays a very important role. Current affairs in the sense, any law, and listen to me carefully, any law which has been in the news in the last 1.5 years, any judicial verdict which has been in the news over the last 1.5 years, that is going to be your focus for the civil services examination. And how do we know which law is in the news, which verdict is in the news? Current affairs, which means newspapers. So if a new law has been enacted in the last 1.5 years, when you are writing the exam, that becomes important for your exam. If a law has been amended in the last 1.5 years, that becomes important for your examination. If a law has been in the news because of various controversies or misuse or alleged abuse, then that becomes important for your examination. Similarly, Not all the judicial verdicts delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court right from 1950 onwards, but those which are in the news. If Keshavananda Bharati is in the news, then it becomes important. If I.R. Kolo is in the news, it becomes important. If S.R. Bommai is in the news, it becomes important. And if recent Supreme Court verdicts which have been delivered, for example, dispute between Lieutenant Governor of Delhi and the Delhi government, for example, various important judgments have been delivered by the Supreme Court this year or last year as well, which has strengthened fiscal federalism in India, where Supreme Court by the majority of 8:1, a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court ruled that states have the power to tax minerals from the lands which belong to the states. In fact, a question on this was asked in your prelims examination as well. This is going to be your key focus area. The first thing that we discussed was what is the importance of Indian polity for the civil services examination. It is relevant across the 3 stages of the examination, including the personality test. So your opinion on One Nation, One Election, your opinion on Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, your opinion on delimitation, your opinion on important fundamental rights which are in the news can be asked in your personality test as well. That is why we say Indian polity is one of the most important subjects for the civil services examination because it is relevant in all the 3 stages of this examination. And if it is relevant, then what are the key focus areas that we have to focus upon? Key focus area, number 1, we have to understand, we have to look at the various laws, various constitutional provisions, laws passed by the legislature, judicial verdicts, and important developments related to the syllabus. But then something else. How do you prepare for Indian polity? For that, you have to keep in mind that there are 2 important differentiations. Differentiations in the sense, aspirants can be broadly divided into, categorized into 2 broad groups. One, who indulge in self-preparation. You are preparing on your own. You have not joined any coaching institute, whether online or offline, you are preparing on your own. And second, those who have already enrolled in coaching. Now, don't ask me a question whether I need coaching or not, because that is subjective. That varies from individual to individual. That is the answer that only you can give to yourself. You should not be asking this question to anybody or everybody, whether I need coaching or not. It depends. But if you have enrolled in coaching, then focus on that teacher, focus on the notes provided by that teacher, regardless of which institute you have joined. Focus on the material provided by that teacher, and please be done with that. That should be relevant for your exam. But if you are preparing on your own, what books to follow, what material to follow, how to link current affairs with the syllabus of this examination, for that you should stay with me till the end. And the purpose of this lecture is going to be targeting those students who are preparing on their own, who have not enrolled in any coaching institute. Clear? But if you want to enroll with us, you want to prepare with us for your civil services examination, and that too in English medium, because there are lots of coachings available in bilingual, in Hindi, in English, but there isn't a proper course structure available in English, which primarily means that students from the southern part of India and also from the beautiful 7 sisters of Northeast and Sikkim, they are left at the mercy and they are forced to study in English batches or Hindi batches. But if you are preparing in English medium, then this is an opportunity for you. You can join our courses, and we are launching a foundation batch for CSE 2026, and this batch starts 31st of May. And if you wish to enroll in this batch, you can do that before 31st of May, because till 31st of May, the subscription fee is 19,999 for 12 months. Go through our website, check various options, whatever suits you. You might see a different price being quoted on your website. But if you will apply this code IAS English, it will automatically unlock the lowest subscription fee, which right now is 19,999. I'll repeat, if you have enrolled in a coaching institute, please follow the teacher, follow the material. You don't have to wander here and there. Please limit your sources. Don't proliferate your sources. Keep your sources minimum. But if you have not enrolled in a coaching institute and you don't want to enroll in a coaching institute, this is the session for you. And today I will tell you a comprehensive plan that you need to follow for Indian polity for the civil services examination, both for prelims as well as the mains examination. But for that, what is the book list? What are the sources that you need to follow? First, you need conceptual clarity. Unless and until your conceptual clarity is missing, you lack the depth, the foundation, it becomes difficult for you to crack this examination. So you have to build your concepts. And for those concepts, you need to read these two very beautifully written books. These are NCERT books of class 11th. One is Indian Constitution at Work and the other is Political Theory. Please follow these two books. If you do not have time, you can skip this book, although I would suggest please read both these books. But if you can read just one, then you can skip Political Theory. But this Indian Constitution at Work, which is a textbook for class 11th in political science, this is the textbook that you must follow, you must read. And if you're finding any difficulty in reading this NCERT book, you can check this YouTube channel. There is an NCERT playlist by me. I have delivered close to 8 lectures on Indian Constitution at Work. You can follow that free YouTube series and your Indian Constitution at Work would be covered. Although 2 lectures are missing, I have not recorded lectures for those 2 chapters, but 8 other chapters have been covered in those video lectures. Start with this book, start with NCERT because that will build your conceptual clarity. But then conceptual clarity is one thing, but then you have to be ready for the exams as well. And for that, this is the book that is recommended by everybody, and I will also recommend this book. But this book is going to help you, as I said right at the start, only for your prelims examination. This is a book which is not going to help you in any which way for the mains examination. Then for mains examination, what do we need to do? I will tell you that as well, but this book is relevant only for the prelims. Once you're done with the NCERT, then you can follow this book. Does that mean, sir, we have to read this book in its entirety, word by word, chapter by chapter? No, there are some chapters which you have to skip. And these are the chapters which focus on voting behavior. These are the chapters which focus on foreign policy. These are the chapters which you should skip. You don't have to follow these chapters, but remaining chapters you have to read. But don't make notes of Lakshmikant. Because if you're making notes of Lakshmikant, then you will end up writing another Lakshmikant because every line becomes important. This book is full of facts. And if you keep on noting down these facts on your notebook, you're writing another Lakshmikant, a bulky book. Instead, you can underline important lines in Lakshmikant, use different color highlighters to underline, highlight important provisions in Lakshmikant and be done with that. Then once you are revising this book, you can only focus on the highlighted portion so that you don't have to read the entire book again. So we have discussed Indian polity is very important. Then we have discussed what is it that we have to focus on Indian polity, what are the key focus areas. Then third, book list. First start with NCERTs. Either both or only one. Preferably both political theory as well as Indian Constitution at Work. But if you have paucity of time, then this book is a must. But then this book alone will not suffice. You have to then read M. Lakshmikant for your prelims examination. If you find M. Lakshmikant challenging or difficult to understand because it lacks conceptual clarity, then maybe you can follow this another beautiful book, Polity Simplified, written by former IAS officer Mr. Rangarajan. But don't follow both the books. Either this book or M. Lakshmikant. Don't follow both because you have to restrict your sources. You have to limit your sources. Don't read multiple books on a single subject. Read one book, but read it 10 times instead of reading 10 books on a single subject. But then, sir, what is the way to approach Indian polity? For that, I always tell my students that there are two important documents released by UPSC. One is the syllabus and the other is PYQs. Please go through both these documents because syllabus will tell you what to study. But how to study? For that, you have to go through PYQs, previous year's question papers. The previous year's question papers of the last 30 years, 40 years? No. Previous year's question papers from 2013 onwards. Sir, why 2013 onwards? Because this was the time when the pattern of the examination changed. And I will not go too deep into it, why the pattern was changed, how the pattern was changed. Long story short, prior to 2013, there used to be 2 GS papers in your mains examination. And then 4 GS papers got introduced. A full-fledged GS paper 2 got introduced. Pattern of the examination changed in 2013. So focus on those PYQs which appeared 2013 onwards till the last year, which is 2025. But if you look at the syllabus of Indian polity, this is the syllabus for your prelims examination. And as you can see, it is not clearly defined. What it says, you have to focus on constitution, the political system, the parliamentary system that we have, the Panchayati Raj institutions, public policy, rights issues, etc. So the syllabus for the prelims examination is not clearly defined. But when you go through the main syllabus, this is properly defined, clearly defined. But if you notice, what is the title? General Studies Paper 2, GS Paper 2. It talks about governance. It talks about constitution. It talks about polity. It talks about social justice. And it talks about international relations. The focus of this session is not on international relations, because that's not the subject that I teach. Is not social justice. Again, this is not the subject that I teach. The focus will be on governance, constitution, and polity. And more specifically, the focus will be on constitution and polity. And then let's look at the syllabus. And look at these various terms that are used in the syllabus. Look at these various lines which are mentioned in the syllabus. Indian Constitution, historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendments, significant provisions, basic structure. For every term that is mentioned in the syllabus, every phrase that is mentioned in the syllabus, every aspect that is mentioned in the syllabus, you should make notes. And these notes should be updated with current affairs. And if your notes are updated with current affairs, you have more chances of cracking the mains examination. Prelims, yes, but more chances of cracking the mains examination, because in mains, the focus is massively on the current affairs. But unless and until you have conceptual clarity, which you can go through, for that you have to go through the NCRTs. And then you know also the facts, which you can refer Lakshmikant for. But then these 2 books alone will not be sufficient. You have to link these concepts with current affairs. And if you are able to link it with current affairs, you will be able to write better answers in your mains examination. How? That is going to be our focus in this lecture. But before we do that, before we analyze that, you need to understand what is the fundamental difference between prelims and the mains examination. What is the fundamental difference between the prelims and the mains examination? In prelims, UPSC will ask questions And the focus of these questions is to test and judge whether you are aware of the facts, whether you are aware of the concepts. So UPSC is going to ask questions to test whether you have the factual knowledge, whether you have the conceptual clarity. This is going to be the focus of the prelims examination. In mains exam, UPSC will focus on two things: whether you can elaborate, whether you can analyze. So your analytical ability, your elaboration skills will be at display, will be put to test when it comes to the mains examination. But sir, even then, we are not clear as to what is the difference between prelims and the mains examination. That is why we are here. For example, in your prelims examination, this is the question which was asked. Because you have to go through the syllabus. Syllabus tells you constitutional bodies. One such constitutional body is the Attorney General for India. What did I tell you? UPSC focuses on facts and concepts when it comes to the prelims examination. Here a question was asked in prelims 2023. Consider the following statements regarding the Attorney General for India and which of these statements are correct. Attorney General can take part in the proceedings of Lok Sabha, correct. Can be a member of a committee of the Lok Sabha, correct. Can speak in the Lok Sabha, correct as well. Can vote in the Lok Sabha, no, because he is not a member of the parliament. Which of the above statements are correct? 1, 2, 3. C is the right answer. What is UPSC judging you for? Whether you have the facts, whether you know the concepts. But same topic is relevant for the mains examination. And in mains examination, I've told you, UPSC will focus on whether you can elaborate, whether you can analyze. Analyze what? Elaborate what? This constitutional body. The Attorney General is the chief legal advisor and lawyer of the government of India. Discuss in, and you will get 15 marks if you get it correct. Although UPSC will not give you 15 marks, but if you can chase 50%, 7.5 marks, you are going to crack this examination. So prelims is about two things: facts and concepts. Mains is about elaboration and analysis. Let's take another example. When a bill is referred to a joint sitting of both the houses of the parliament, it has to be passed by. Because if there is a bill on which there is a disagreement, one house is okay with this bill, the other house is not. One house passes this bill, the other house blocks this bill, rejects this bill, or various other conditions. Long story short, on this bill, there is a deadlock. And to resolve this deadlock, the president notifies a joint sitting where both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, they come together to discuss and pass this bill. And when such a bill is being discussed in the joint sitting, what is the majority required for this bill to be passed? The majority required is a simple majority of members present and voting. Which means in this question, what is UPSC focusing on? Whether you know the facts. But same topic, joint sitting, is relevant or can be relevant for your mains examination. And this is the question which was asked. The Indian Constitution has provisions for holding joint sessions of the two houses of the Indian Parliament. Now enumerate the occasions when this would normally happen and also the occasions when it cannot, with the reasons thereof. And this is something that you can't find in Lakshmi. That is why I'm telling you Lakshmikant is not relevant for your mains examination. So which are these areas where a joint sitting can be conducted? On ordinary bills, on financial bills, but not on money bills, not on constitutional amendment bills. And you have to mention the reasons as well. So here the UPSC is focusing upon whether you can elaborate the provisions that are mentioned in the syllabus. That's the fundamental difference between prelims and the mains examination. In prelims, the focus will be on facts and concepts. In mains, the focus will be on elaboration. The focus will be on analysis. Analysis in the sense, let's look at other questions. For example, this is a question that was asked in 2025 prelims examination. Panchayats at the intermediate level exist in all the states. How many statements are there? 3 statements. Now I will tell you something, and the purpose of sharing this is not to tell you that all these questions were asked from what I taught in the class. No, the purpose is to tell you how to approach the subject, how to study this subject, where the focus has to be. Because by analyzing the PYQs, you should also be in a position to anticipate questions. What sort of questions can be asked in the examination? How these questions can be asked? What is the level of depth that you have to go into to answer these questions when it comes to the examination? First statement is Panchayat at the intermediate level exist in all states. This is the screenshot of my class, which I take on the Unacademy app. There shall be constituted in every state panchayats at the village, intermediate and district level. But there I also have focused upon that it is not necessary to constitute panchayats at the intermediate level if the population of that state has not exceeded 20 lakhs. This is the underlined term. This is how you will have to read. You will have to revise. You will have to focus upon. If there are 3 tiers of panchayat, panchayat at the village level, panchayat at the district level, panchayat at the intermediate level, you should know that panchayat at the intermediate level need not necessarily be constituted in a state where the population does not exceed 20 lakhs. This is statement 1. Statement 2. To be eligible to be a member of panchayat at the intermediate level, a person should attain the age of 30 years. These are facts, and I told you facts are important for the prelims examination. And this is something that I have discussed in the class, that the age is 21 years. In order to be eligible to become the member of a panchayat, the minimum age is 21 years. Statement 2 is also covered. Statement 3. The Chief Minister of a state constitutes a commission to review the financial position of panchayats at the intermediate level. So you should not only have the potential to answer 2 provisions or 2 statements. You should know all the statements. And for that, you have to read thoroughly. And this is something that I've discussed in the class, that this is the job of the State Finance Commission. This is not the job of the Chief Minister. Long story short, the purpose here is to tell you how to read Indian polity, because you never know what will be asked in the examination. Whether it is minute of the minutest details regarding age, regarding intermediate level, regarding the Finance Commission, you have to be prepared for everything when it comes to the civil services examination. So if this was the question asked in your prelims examination, and I've told you that in prelims, the focus is on facts and concepts. But what sort of questions will be asked in the mains examination? This is the question which has been asked from this topic in the mains examination. I'm just giving you one example. There are multiple examples. The local self-government system in India has not proved to be an effective instrument of governance. Critically examine the statement and give your views to improve the situation. And this is something that you can never write an answer to if you have read only Lakshmikant. Because here it is about elaboration. Here it is about analysis. But sir, how do we then answer this question? You will have to read newspapers or you will have to follow a teacher. Why? Because Lakshmikant, a single book, does not cover this subject holistically for both prelims as well as the mains examination. Such topics are often in the news, where in newspaper editorials and columns, there is a critical analysis of Panchayati Raj institutions, local self-governing institutions, whether we should have a directly elected mayor in urban local bodies. How should we strengthen the position of urban local bodies? Because Constitution envisages that we should create local self-governing institutions, but these should be local self-governing institutions. And for that, the focus should be on 3 F's. Functions, functionaries, and funds. Funds should be available to these urban local bodies and Panchayati Raj institutions so that they become units of self-government. They should not be dependent upon the state government for funds. They should not be dependent upon central government for funds. They should be able to generate their own funds, own revenue, so that they sustain themselves. Functions. Constitution says the state legislature may transfer some of these powers to the Panchayati Raj institutions. We are telling that this term may should be replaced with shall. And whenever Constitution mentions the term shall, that means it is binding, it is necessary, it is compulsory. Which means if the Constitution says that the state legislature may devolve some of the functions to the panchayats, we are saying that the reform should be the state legislature shall. It should be mandatory for the state legislature to devolve these functions to the Panchayati Raj institutions, to the urban local bodies, so that they become local self-governing institutions. And then the functionaries as well, who will implement the decisions that is taken by the Gram Sabha, that is taken by the Panchayati Raj institutions. These are taken by the bureaucrats, but bureaucrats are not accountable to them. Bureaucrats are accountable to the political class, to the government, to the MLAs also. Not necessarily, but to the MLAs, but not to these sarpanches or panches. And then there is another talk about Sarpanchpati. If you have watched that beautiful Amazon web series Panchayat, where the Sarpanch on paper is Neena Gupta, but it is the Raghubar Das who is the husband, the Pati of the Sarpanch, who takes all the decisions. Sarpanchpati, this is a menace. So despite the fact that we have a constitutional provision that not less than 1/3 of the seats in Panchayat should be reserved for women, but then these women candidates, some of them, they act as proxies of their male partners. That has to come to an end, and recently a significant decision was taken in this regard. That becomes important for your mains examination. What am I telling you? Difference between prelims and mains. Prelims will focus on facts and concepts, but mains you will have to elaborate, you will have to analyze. Let's look at another question which was asked in Prelims 2025. Why am I discussing this question? Listen to me carefully. I watched a lot of videos analyzed by all the teachers who teach this subject for the civil services examination. And most of them said that this was a difficult question because this is not how we teach. We cannot go into too minutest of these details. So this particular statement in the exam, that 45 years of age, this is something that we have not covered in the class. I will show you proof. Not to prove that I have covered all these statements in the examination, in my lectures. But this is to tell you how you need to approach the subject. You have to understand everything. How? What is the first statement? The power of Lokpal applies to public servants of India, but not to Indian public servants who are posted outside India. I have covered this in the class, and I have said it includes, jurisdiction includes all those officers who are part of group A, B, C and D. If you are preparing for civil services examination, maybe your aspiration is that you want to become an IFS officer as well. As an IFS officer, you will be posted abroad, but you are part of group A. So automatically you will realize that power of the Lokpal applies to public servants of India, but not to public servants who are posted outside India. This statement is incorrect. Second statement, the chairperson or a member shall not be a member of the parliament or a member of the legislature, and only the Chief Justice of India, whether incumbent or retired, whether the current Chief Justice or the retired Chief Justice, has to be the chairperson. If you look at my lectures, Lokpal shall consist of chairperson, and look at the highlighted, look at the underlined word, who has been a judge of the Supreme Court or an eminent person. Who has been a judge. So it is not necessarily you have to be the incumbent Chief Justice of India or a retired Chief Justice of India. So you have to look at where the underlined word is. So I will tell you in the classes where you need to focus on, and questions can be asked. Look at this third statement. Third statement is the chairperson shall not be a person of less than 45 years of age. Clear? Less than 45 years of age. Directly mentioned in the classes. This is not to tell you or to boast about that I have covered this in the class. This is to tell you how do you need to approach the subject. Because sometimes what happens, there are 4 statements in the question. You are able to point out statement 1 and 2, whether they are correct or incorrect, but you have no idea about statement 3 and statement 4. Either you will skip that question or you will mark it incorrect, which will mean that you will get negative marking. That is how you need to have proper guidance so that somebody can tell you where to focus upon. Less than 45 years of age. This can be asked in the exam. This is something that we have discussed in the class. And fourth important, Lokpal cannot inquire into the allegations of corruption against the sitting Prime Minister of India. The first statement is, jurisdiction of Lokpal includes the Prime Minister. Yes, there are some exceptions, decisions of the Prime Minister with regards to atomic energy, with regards to international relations. That is not the subject, that is not within the jurisdiction of the Lokpal. But now comes the important point. Why this question was asked? Because Lokayukta was in the news. Which Lokayukta? Karnataka Lokayukta. Because Karnataka Lokayukta allowed the investigation into the allegations of corruption by the Chief Minister of Karnataka in the Mudda scam, Mysuru Urban Development Authority scam. But UPSC did not ask about Lokpal. UPSC did not ask about Lokayukta. UPSC asked about Lokpal at the center. Because Lokpal and the Lokayukta Act of 2013, it was passed in 2013. So since Lokayukta was in the news, the question related to Lokpal was asked in the examination. That is why I tell you, understand PYQs, and through PYQs, you will also anticipate questions that can be asked in the examination. Anticipate in the sense, listen to me carefully. In Prelims 2023, a question on Official Secrets Act was asked. Why? Because this law was passed in 1923. 1923 till 2023, which means 100 years of the enactment of this law. These anniversary dates are also important. And that is how this question was asked in the examination. So you should also anticipate questions. What can be asked in the examination? Similarly, questions in the mains examination was asked last year on one nation, one election. Why? Because this wasn't the news. And sometimes the questions are repeated. Repeated in the sense, 2017 was the time when Prime Minister Modi discussed the idea, floated the idea of one nation, one election. Same year, this question was asked in the mains examination. If one nation, one election is implemented, accountability of the representatives to the public will reduce. This question was asked in the mains examination. And when former President Ramnath Kovind committee was set up and it gave its recommendation that we should have one nation, one election in India, this question was asked again in 2024. So whatever is in the news, this is what we call current affairs. That has to be the focus of your preparation. Similarly, last year when Ethics Committee was in the news, because on the recommendations of the Ethics Committee, Mahua Moitra, Honorable Member of the Lok Sabha, was expelled from the Lok Sabha. Question on Ethics Committee was asked in the examination. A bill on unfair means in public examination was passed. A question on that was asked in the mains examination. Maybe this time, if delimitation is in the news, a question on delimitation can be asked in the examination. If there is corruption in the judiciary which is in the news, then how do we ensure that judiciary is accountable for its actions? That can be asked in your mains examination. Similarly, when in 2015, a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court declared that NJAC, the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, is unconstitutional. In 2015 mains, the question was asked, critically analyze the Supreme Court verdict on 99th Constitutional Amendment Act. And this is something that you can understand only if you have a thorough understanding of the syllabus and you have gone through and understood the PYQs as well. So syllabus, PYQs, plus current affairs developments, that has to be the focus of your examination. And if this is taken care of, Indian polity for prelims mains becomes a cakewalk for you. Let's take a look at other examples. Consider the following statements with regards to pardoning power of the President of India. This question was also asked in the examination this year because pardoning powers were in the news. Why? Did you hear or did you read about the Bilkis Bano case? Where the accused or the convicts rather, their sentences were reduced and they were released from the jail. And then the matter went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court directed that all these convicts should go back to the jail because it is not the jurisdiction of the Gujarat government, it is the jurisdiction of the Maharashtra government. And picking from this, the pardoning powers, the question was asked in the examination. But what sort of question was asked? Conceptual as well as factual. The exercise of this power by the president can be subjected to limited judicial review. This is something that is mentioned in the lectures itself, something that I've taught in the class. Convicts cannot insist on physical hearing, but the exercise of this power is subject to judicial review on the grounds that the action of the president or the governor is mala fide, which means in bad faith. So there is judicial review. Second statement. The president can exercise this power without the aid and advice of the central government. And we have discussed that in the class, that president acts on the advice of the cabinet. It is not the discretionary power of the president. And the decision of the cabinet is communicated to the president through the home minister. The idea here is to tell you, to communicate to you how to approach the subject for the examination. Let's look at another question which was asked in Prelims 2025. And this is where another important source becomes important for your examination, and which is the Bare Act. Without any explanation, what are the provisions of Indian Constitution? For that you have to read the Constitution. But you are not a lawyer. How to read it? How to understand it? For that you need a guide. For that you need a reference. And on the Bare Act itself, there are 3 live sessions which I have conducted on this YouTube channel. You can go through those 3 lectures, wherein Bare Act 1, 2, 3, I have covered the entire Bare Act. And statements from Bare Act have been reproduced verbatim by UPSC in your examination. And today I will give you the proof of that. Statement number 1. On the dissolution of the House of the People, the Speaker shall not vacate his or her office immediately until immediately before the first meeting of the House of the People after dissolution. Sir, have you covered it in your classes? The Speaker does not resign upon the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. He resigns when the new Lok Sabha is meeting for the first time. Which means statement number 1 is taken care of. According to the provisions of the Constitution of India, a member of the House of the People being elected as the Speaker shall resign. And I've told you previously, whenever this term shall is mentioned in the Constitution, it means it is binding. But we have discussed that in the classes, that Speaker, a person who has been elected to this office of the Speaker, if this person resigns voluntarily, you will not be disqualified. Which means if you resign, which means it is not mentioned that you have to resign, you shall resign. This is directly from the Bare Act. Which means statement 1 is taken care of, statement 2 is taken care of. The Speaker of the House of People may be removed. But 14-day notice has to be provided and you are removed by effective majority. Speaker is elected by simple majority but removed by effective majority. On what grounds? These grounds are not mentioned in the Constitution. And there is a convention. that the speaker is always a member of the ruling party or a ruling coalition. But if these are facts related to the office of the speaker, if these are concepts related to the office of speaker, which is asked by UPSC in your prelims examination, what about mains examination? Once a speaker, always a speaker. Analyze now, because speaker is, since he is or she is a member of the ruling party or the ruling coalition, which means you will be biased in your actions and you will favor the ruling political party. Should we then embrace what is found in United Kingdom, that once a person is elected as a speaker, you remain in office forever unless and until you resign? Should we incorporate that in India as well? Once a speaker, always a speaker. Do you think the practice should be adopted to impart objectivity to the office of speaker? What could be its implications for the robust functioning of the parliamentary business in India? This is analysis. And this was discussed in the newspaper. This has been discussed in the newspapers for the last many years as well. Why? Because office of speaker is always viewed as controversial because you are partisan in your approach. If facts and concepts are tested and judged by UPSC in your prelims examination, your mains examination will focus on elaboration and analysis. Similarly, if any question arises whether a member of the House of the People is subject to disqualification under 10th schedule, the President's decision is final on the opinion of the Council of Ministers. There is no mention of the term political party in the Constitution. This is clearly mentioned. And this is something, once a speaker, always a speaker. This topic I have covered in my classes. Similarly, political party is mentioned in the Constitution. And this decision is taken by speaker. This topic, anti-defection law, relevant for prelims? Because what are the questions asked? Related to anti-defection law, 10th schedule, who takes the decision? Whether political party is mentioned or not. Facts, concepts are asked in prelims. But what about mains examination? Look at the beautiful question. The role of individual MPs has diminished over the years, and as a result, healthy, constructive debates on policy issues are not usually witnessed. How far can this be attributed to the anti-defection law, which was legislated but with a different intention? Anti-defection law was enacted by the Parliament, was added to the Constitution by a constitutional amendment. But why? To ensure stability of the governments. Otherwise, this Aarambh, Gayaram politics was destabilizing the elected governments. But then if the purpose of anti-defection law was to ensure stability, but then there is something called whip. A whip is issued by the political party, and the members of the political party, the MPs and MLAs of that political party, they have to abide by the whip. If they don't abide by the whip, they will be disqualified. Which primarily means that I, as an MP, I cannot have my individual take on legislations. What if I belong to Congress and I'm in favor of Citizenship Amendment Bill? I can't support that bill, because if I vote in favor of that bill, I will be disqualified. What if I'm part of the BJP, but I'm against the Waqf bill? But if I vote against it, or if I get to speak against it, action can be taken by my party against me. Because of which, an individual MP cannot have his own opinion on important policy matters. So, anti-defection law, which was meant to ensure stability of the governments, it has now an unintended consequence. And that unintended consequence is we are witnessing reduced good quality debates in the Parliament because of the whip system. And when this question was asked in the examination, do you know why this question was asked? Because at that time there was a private member's bill introduced by an MP who said that we should make whip binding only when the stability of the government is threatened. Make whip binding in case of confidence motion, no confidence motion, passage of the money bill, vote of thanks on president or governor's address. Don't make it binding for everything, because we want to witness good quality constructive debates in the Parliament. Because that should be the individual freedom that a legislator should have in the parliament. That is how you will have to prepare for Indian polity. Similarly, there was a question on minor minerals. Why this question was asked? Because there was, as I said, a judgment of the Supreme Court delivered by the Chief Justice of India. There was a 9-judge bench, a very beautiful judgment, historic judgment, which strengthened fiscal federalism in India, where a Supreme Court bench, a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court by the majority of 8:1, because only one judge dissented, Justice Nagaratna. He said, the bench said that states have the right to tax minerals. The state has the right to charge cess on the royalty which is given to these state governments. That is why this question was asked. And this is current affairs that I'm talking about. And this is something which we have discussed in the current affairs lectures. The idea again here is not to tell you that this was covered in my classes. The idea here is to tell you how to approach this subject. NCERT for your conceptual understanding, Lakshmikant for facts, Bare Act for provisions of the Constitution, and then newspapers, current affairs. Read editorials and columns. Read Pratap Banu Mehta. Read the editorials of Indian Express. Read the editorials of Hindu. Read some beautiful articles written on constitutional development laws by Gautam Bhatia, who now writes for the Hindustan Times, or Shuhrit Parthasarthi, who writes for the Hindu newspaper. There are beautiful blogs in Con Law Phil. There is beautiful commentary in Frontline and in various EPW, the Wire.in, the Scroll, the Print. Now, don't call me international because I'm discussing these portals, but there are some good quality articles written in these web portals. And in fact, sometimes questions have been directly asked from Scroll, Wire in your mains examination. Word by word, statements have been picked from these articles and asked in the mains examination by the UP. That is what I call current affairs. Something else. And again, I was going through one of the lectures by a teacher, and according to them, this statement was difficult. Ordinance can abridge a fundamental right, because you may be surprised. You may never have read this word, abridge. What is abridge? Maybe you should not be able, or you may not be able to answer it. But this is something that we cover in the class. Article 13, Clause 2, the state shall not make any law which takes away or abridges the rights guaranteed by this part. And if any such law is passed, it will be null and void. And this is where the concept of judicial review has originated, although this term judicial review is not mentioned in the Constitution. And in fact, previously once a question on judicial review was asked. Sir, you are boasting about your knowledge. I am not. In fact, today I will admit a mistake. And that is why the session is also important. I will admit a mistake. And for that, please stay with me for a second. But judicial review is not mentioned in the Constitution. It is traceable from Article 13, Clause 2. And when all the teachers who provided the answer key, they said, yes, there is judicial review, I was the one who stood alone and said there is no such thing as judicial review, and UPSC agreed with that. Similarly, can President promulgate an ordinance to amend the Constitution? Answer is no. And using this concept, you could have answered this question correctly. An ordinance can abridge a fundamental right. You can clearly say no. And similarly, if ordinance can be asked in your prelims examination, ordinance can be asked in your mains examination as well. And in fact, this question has been asked in the mains exam, primarily because there was a very important Supreme Court judgment, Krishna Kumar versus State of Bihar, where Supreme Court ruled that repromulgating an ordinance without tabling it on the floor of the parliament or the legislature is committing fraud on the Constitution. And this statement was asked in your mains examination. Repromulgating an ordinance without placing it on the floor of the parliament. What is your take on that? something of that sort. This was asked in the mains examination. So facts, concepts for your prelims, analysis in mains, provided it is in the news. That is where current affairs plays a very important role. Similarly, and this is the mistake I was talking about, when we did the analysis of the question paper on the 25th evening, we discussed this question, and I told you that this statement 1, although it is correct, but this is not covered in the class, and it should not be covered in the class because this is related to environment. The capital is named after a fort and the state has 2 national parks. This is correct, but that is not my subject expertise. I don't teach environment. Nagaland, the state came into existence on the basis of Constitutional Amendment Act, and this is where I want to admit it. I said that this is a correct statement. Nagaland, the state came into existence on the basis of a Constitutional Amendment Act. And in fact, I gave the reason as well. I said this is something that I teach in the class. There is a special status for Nagaland provided by the Constitutional Amendment Act, which was enacted in 1962, Article 371, capital E. So what is the statement? The statement is the state came into existence on the basis of a Constitutional Amendment Act. And then, as I told you, I also went through the analysis of the prelims questions done by various teachers, respectable teachers. I was analyzing 2 of them. They also have mentioned it as correct. They also say that yes, this statement is correct, that state came into existence on the basis of a Constitutional Amendment Act. But while I was going through that analysis, suddenly it hit me and I said, no, this is wrong. And in fact, I have also made this mistake and I should correct it. So what is bigger? Your preparation, your dream, or my ego? Your preparation is bigger. And I'm owning up that today I made a mistake, and for the first time in my 13-year career, I made a mistake in analyzing a prelims question, which was conducted the same year. This is an incorrect statement. The state came into existence on the basis of a Constitutional Amendment Act. This is incorrect, because it came into existence on the basis of the law passed by the Parliament, and that too under Article 3 of the Constitution, the State of Nagaland Act 1960. So the state came into existence on the basis of a law passed by the Parliament, which is an ordinary law under Article 3 of the Constitution. Yes, there is a special status for Nagaland provided under Article 371, capital A. This special status was given through a constitutional amendment. But the state came into existence on the basis of the ordinary law passed by the Parliament in 1962 under Article 3 of the Constitution. So this is the mistake that I am admitting. But the point is, all these questions which have been asked in the examination, let's say related to governor, someone was saying that it is difficult for a student to understand whether discretionary power is explicitly provided in the Constitution or not. But if you have read the Bare Act, if you have followed the lectures, I clearly say that it is discretionary power of the governor. Although Constitution does not define what is a discretionary power of the governor. And in fact, when we discuss the passage of bills, this is where we discuss the discretionary power. And this is where the second statement, the governor can reserve a bill for the consideration of the president. Here it was reversed. The president on her own can reserve a bill. No, it is the governor who reserves a bill for the consideration of the president. Any questions as of now, please let me know. Don't go for 6th to 12th NCERT. Only these 2 NCERTs which I have told you, Indian Constitution at Work and Political Theory. If time permits, both these NCERTs. If no, then one Indian Constitution at Work. Similarly, I was going through the analysis, and then there was a question on consider the following subjects under the Constitution of India. If we have to amend these provisions, how many such provisions require ratification by not less than half of the states? And then there was a discussion, and even there is a discussion on Reddit. I was not aware, but somebody sent me the links that there is this discussion going on. I went through it, and unnecessarily, and this is something that UPSC is also to be blamed for, because sometimes UPSC makes a correct statement incorrect in its answer key, and an incorrect one correct in its answer key. So it depends on which constitution is read by UPSC question paper setter. But be that as it may, because of the inconsistencies or inaccuracies in the answer key, that forces the students to overthink and then make mistakes in the examination. For example, in this particular question, they thought that since the governor is appointed by the center to a state, and this means it's a federal provision, and to amend federal provision, we need ratification by the states as well. For that, you just have to read Constitution. Constitution is clear when it comes to Article 368, that only for amending these provisions, including Article 368 itself, you need ratification by half of the states. So my point is, when it comes to polity, whether for prelims or mains, or for that matter, personality test as well, what is it that you should follow? For basic conceptual understanding, NCERT, and I've told you class 11th NCERT. Once it is done, then Lakshmikant or Polity Simplified courseware by Mr. Rangarajan. And then current affairs. Current affairs does not mean you follow just one newspaper. Current affairs means that you have to follow important articles related to Indian polity which appear in either the Hindu or Indian Express or Hindustan Times or the Wire, Scroll, Print, Economic and Political Weekly. Does that mean, sir, we have to follow all these sources? If you have to write well, if you have to write good answers, then yes. Or there is another alternative is find a teacher. Find a teacher who will work hard on your behalf, who will read the Constitution, the Bare Act, the NCERTs, the Lakshmikants, the Rangarajans, the D.D. Basus, the Subhash Kashyap's and others, and also follow current affairs religiously, so that you have a one-stop destination. You just follow that teacher, follow the notes, and then you are sorted for the examination. Even after that, you may still make mistakes. Even after that, it may be possible that few questions have been asked in the examination which I have not taught. This is where an important thing I want to tell you. My purpose is to make you fall in love with the subject, so that once you are being taught, you become so ingrained in the subject that you read more on your own. And from that, you will be able to solve other questions, which may not have occurred or appeared in my notes or in my classes. That's the purpose. And this is something that I wanted to communicate to you. And again, if you want to enroll with us, subscribe to our UPSC courses, you can do that before 31st of May, because I'm told this offer where our UPSC subscription is available for 12 months at 19,999. This offer ends on 31st of May, which is tomorrow. Go through our website, check various options. There is Plus, there is Iconic Plus. Whatever suits you, go through our website and check the pricing. You might see a different price being quoted on the website, but applying this code, you will automatically unlock the lowest discount. Now, towards the end, whatever questions you have, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to respond to your queries. When is the next platinum badge going to start? 14th of June. The Bear Act was a beast, really appreciable. Thank you. The subject may feel a bit dry during preparation. How to get over that? Fall in love with the subject. And whether the subject is boring or exciting doesn't matter. You have to, in any case, follow it. So develop interest in that subject. Ajit, I have already asked. That if hard work is in analyzing current affairs sources is done by the faculty, then how should an aspirant brainstorm on topics? Brainstorm on topics after you become an IAS officer. First, reach there, crack the examination. No matter how you do it, whether it bases someone else's hard work or your own hard work, but reach there first. Okay, that is it for today. If you have any doubts, you can post your doubts in the comment section. As I told you right at the start, I will personally respond to all your doubts, whatever you have with regards to your preparation. And if this session has been of some help to you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. See you next time. Till then, all the best. Good night.